Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming out. My name is Deanna Horton. I'm going to be talking about Canada and three oceans sovereignty. Canada needs to redefine itself as a three oceans nation and devote resources to enhancing sovereignty in this space. As a former foreign policy practitioner, and as someone who has spent a good deal of time living in Asia and focusing on Asia, I have often bemoaned the fact that Canada seems intent on focusing on its Atlantic relationships. Our points of reference are NATO-driven. A couple of personal examples. When I was serving in the Deputy's office in what was then the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, now Global Affairs Canada, there were many internecine squabbles about resources. It seemed to me that the legacy missions in Europe held greater sway than the posts in Asia, further away, both in distance and imagination. When I was doing G7 work in Japan, I was on occasion asked to represent the relevant department at meetings, too far to travel for Ottawa bureaucrats. I bet that would not have been the case if I had been in Paris or Rome. Getting over our reflex Atlanticism is still a challenge, in spite of the fact that our population is coming from another direction, the majority of recent immigrants originating in Asia. Canada now has an Indo-Pacific strategy, certainly a step in the right direction. But Canadian sovereignty has been shaped by our US-dependent and Atlanticist predilections. This was one of the topics in a book chapter I co-wrote in 2022, where we concluded that Canada remains unequipped to discharge any significant geostrategic role in Asia. I'm affiliated with the Asia-Pacific Foundation of Canada, which does its valiant best to improve Asia competence in Canada. I have often been asked to speak to the Asian Institute students at the Munk School. I usually start with a graphic by the visual capitalist of the world economy. I like it because it's color-coded. All you have to do is see Asia at the top, dominating the regions. Asia is the key to Canada's economic prosperity, now and in the future. Yet we do not see Canadian students going to study in Asia as much as they go to study in USA or Europe. The Business Council of Canada has opened up an office in Asia for the first time. That's good news. Hopefully that will encourage more Canadian companies to do the same. But the interesting thing for me, when I was working on a research project at Munk, was that the Canadian tech companies that we had mapped in Asia had often gone to Asia first. This seemed counterintuitive. Why go all the way across the Pacific when you can do business in the USA? Well, this was a pattern that developed because of the strong thirst for innovation in Asia and because of the fact that it was often easier and cheaper to get things done, like have a prototype made, in places like Shenzhen in China. So for some at least, the myth that it is too difficult to enter these markets is just that, a myth. While I hope that our latest attempt at trade diversification will take advantage of Asian opportunities, thinking about Asia is still not Canada's reflex. When we talk about like-minded countries, we invariably think, at least in the first instance, about Europe. In November 2022, Global Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly spoke at the Munk School, stating, "For a long time, we saw Canada as a very important transatlantic partner, but we need to assert ourselves more as a Pacific nation." Japan initiated the Indo-Pacific concept when the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe talked of a free and open Indo-Pacific in 2016. Japan has stepped up, taking a leadership position when the United States walked away from the Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations. I contend that Canada should be thinking of itself as a North Pacific nation, and we should be defining our sovereignty in that context. Japan and South Korea are our staunch allies, but we don't appreciate them this way, or certainly not as much as we should. They are business partners. We three share a common security dependence on the USA, and we are worried about US commitment to allies. And we also have much in common with our Commonwealth buddies in the southernmost Pacific, Australia and New Zealand. And I believe they should have much to share with us on how to deal with the other economic superpower, China. Our sovereignty as a Pacific nation also underscores the need for us to exercise our sovereignty in the Arctic. 2 years ago, I was a research advisor to a very talented Munk student named Nicolas Bouchard, and we ended up writing a piece together on the Indo-Pacific and the Arctic, where we underlined the importance of Canada to leverage its limited impact by maximizing complementarity with its partners. The Arctic is growing even more important for Canada, given its strategic location between world powers and the increased access to natural resources and ship transportation routes due to climate change. And there is also growing interest from non-Arctic states in the Arctic, such as Japan, South Korea, and Singapore, and China has proclaimed itself a near-Arctic state. However, despite the significance of the Arctic for Canada, its governance and protection have not been viewed as a priority by many Canadians, or governments for that matter. The government has recently announced, finally, spending increases to bolster our Arctic defense sovereignty, but we will continue to need investments in Arctic-capable systems and technologies. Combining forces with NATO and Pacific partners in the Arctic would help share the burden, a burden which Canada has yet to fully embrace. Similarly, promoting investment from like-minded partners in much-needed infrastructure investment in the Arctic would help build resilience in these still fragile northern economies. Equally important, as three oceans nation, it is not enough to protect our sovereign spaces. The oceans are a shared resource. We should do all that we can to ensure the sustainability of these marine environments and further relations with Indigenous peoples in the Arctic and the Pacific. In conclusion, we now live in an unpredictable world. I don't think we are going back to status quo ante, the way things were before. By defining ourselves as a three oceans nation, Canada is not only better positioned to protect our sovereignty, but also to build partnerships in Asia and the Arctic with our friends in the Pacific. Prime Minister Carney is in Asia right now. People are paying attention. Let's hope that they continue to do so. Thank you.